Hey, it's me, MLB. Here is part 8 of the Missed Hashira. Enjoy. I am sorry about my voice. I was doing everything humanly possible to keep it together, but nope. My voice box has decided to yeet itself before I ended up finishing the series. So I'll fumble through it. Hopefully you can understand me and hear me and enjoy the chapter. Leaving the castle and book behind him, he ran, his only focus you, as he sprinted into the bush. While he ran, his mind raced alongside him, picking out your symptoms, or those of which he could see, and matching them with the specific counterplant. Cold and clammy to the touch. Stiffness. It could be Yamatori Kabuto. That would work. He thought as he blinked a few times to let his eyes adjust in the darkness ahead of him. Still running, his eyes darted left and right, trying to find the plant that he was looking for, when suddenly he spotted it in a clearing ahead, barely illuminated by the moonlight. There it is, he mumbled out loud, running over to it and placing you down on the ground next to it. Your breathing was coming in more ragged gasps now, and he glanced at you as he plucked the plant from the ground, breaking off a small leaf of it between his finger and thumb. Trying to remember what he had seen his father do before, he crushed the small leaf and rolled it back and forth in between his fingers, rolling them over each other with the leaf between, crushing it and mashing it so that it would release some of its liquid. It did so, and he reached for you and sat you up slightly with his hand on the back of your head. Yin, open your mouth, he said in his soft, somewhat apathetic voice. You could still hear him, but your body didn't want to obey any commands right then, and it was all you could do to just keep breathing. Open, he said again, and you tried, but you couldn't. Suddenly his fingers were at the corner of your mouth, prying your teeth apart, and something was slipped under your tongue. Pardon the intrusion, you heard him say. It's fine, you replied in your mind, but outwardly you were still shivering and panting, unable to actually speak. Close your mouth, Yin, you heard him say, but again you weren't able to comply, and that's when you felt his soft lips against yours, and your body reacted and your mouth clamped to his. You stayed like that for the longest time, unsure if you had died now and this was actually heaven, or was he actually kissing you and holding your lips against his for the longest time. Irrespective of this going on, your symptoms started to slowly subside. Your shivering abated slightly and your body relaxed, but still you felt his lips against yours. As your body slowly eased its tremors, you felt his arms around you, pulling you closer, and your eyes slowly opened. He was still kissing you, and you looked up into his wide-open, iridescent blue eyes, mesmerized, until you felt like this kiss had been going on for way too long, and you pulled back to break the connection. Oh, he said in an apathetic tone. You're okay now. I have so many questions. But first of all, why were you kissing me? You asked, in a still somewhat feeble voice, trying to sit up in his arms a little more, but he wasn't letting you move much. I wasn't kissing you. Yes, you were. No, I wasn't, he said with a small head tilt of confusion. You were. Your lips were pressed to mine, you said emphatically, pulling up a stiff arm and pointing to your lips and then to his lips and then looking away with a little bit of embarrassment. Why did he make me explain that? That's so embarrassing, you wailed internally. I was making you hold the medicine in your mouth, he replied calmly. You were panting a lot, and I needed you to close your mouth so that the saliva in your mouth would mix with the juice from inside the leaf and make you better. Huh? You asked, only now becoming aware of something in your mouth still under your tongue. You'd forgotten that he had slipped it in there earlier. Your mind had been wholly consumed by the thought of his lips pressed to yours. Don't move it, he said quickly, when he saw that you had felt it there. It's still working. What is it? You asked, trying to keep whatever it was under your tongue. It's Yamatori Kabuto. I lived in the mountains, and my mother was sick a lot. I saw her have the same symptoms as you once, and I watched how my dad got this plant, and then he crushed it, and he put it under her tongue. Then he pressed his lips to hers, and stayed that way until she was better. You could have just put your hand on my mouth or something, you blurted out. It didn't have to be your mouth. It didn't? He asked with another head tilt, and you wanted to facepalm as well as smosh his adorable, innocent cheeks. Okay, maybe it did. You backtracked quickly, realizing that he had merely copied what he'd seen his father do to his mother, and when you thought about it, it was a really cute thing to do. No lurid intentions behind his actions, just purely wanting you to get better as quickly as possible. But Wait, what happened? Did you get the book? You asked him to divert the conversation. No, he said sadly. I was worried about you, so I left with you. I really need to get the book though, although they may have moved it again by now, if there were demons who saw us and lived. Leave me here and go and get it. The master is counting on us to bring it back, you said sternly, still from within his arms. He looked down at you and stared at you for the longest time. Are you sure? He asked after a while. Yes, I'm sure, you said with a firm head nod. Okay, he replied, with a hint of reluctance in his voice. But I'm worried about leaving you here in the woods by yourself. I'm feeling stronger now. I'll be okay. I don't think I'm up to taking on demons again, but I can somewhat defend myself, you said, trying to sound strong, but also not wanting to fill him with overconfidence in your skills. Can you wield a sword? He asked as he let you go gently and got up. Yep, you said, reaching for it and pulling it out to move it around a little. Send up a colour if you need help, he said as he stepped back. Okay, I'll send orange or yellow, you replied with a little forced smile. He nodded and turned to go. I won't be long. I don't want to be apart from you for too long, he said, speaking over his shoulder back to you as he walked off into the dark, the tips of his hair almost glowing as he disappeared. What on earth? Does he even know what he's saying? He says these things so casually, but does he realise what it could sound like to someone, definitely not me, who has a crush on him? Again, definitely not me, you thought with a sigh, as you adjusted the crushed leaf under your tongue. So he grew up in the mountains, right? That's something I didn't know. True to his word, it was far quicker time than what you had been expecting for his return, and you gave him a look of surprise as his form appeared in the darkness, walking back to you with a brown leather-bound book clasped in his hand. You got it, you said with surprise, but also not surprised. This was Muichiro, and you were sure he could do anything. Yes, he said as he approached you, and you stood up. How are you feeling? He asked, seeing you wobble on your feet. Great, you lied. Your head was still pounding and your feet felt numb, but you were a far cry better than what you'd been before. You're still not 100%, he commented, and your sweat dropped. Oh, man, I'm doing my best, you thought internally. Come, he said, walking up to you. We'll sleep in the woods tonight, and I'll make a fire and a proper mix of herbal medicine for you. Is it safe, you asked, looking around, to sleep in the woods near here? I'll protect you, he said calmly, before heading off, and you scrambled to follow after him, feeling like you were walking on 2 blocks of ice, zero feeling in your feet whatsoever. Muichiro was aware that you were still suffering the effects of the demon's poison, so didn't walk too fast, constantly glancing back to make sure that you were okay. But you were so busy watching where you were going to see him looking back at you. Finally, he felt like you were both far enough away from everything that he relaxed a little and slowed down. You pulled up a bit and waited as he looked around and then pointed to the ground. You sit here. I'll make a fire in this clearing, he said, taking his sword off and placing it down on the ground where he had suggested that you sit. Feeling like there wasn't anything else to do aside from obey, you trudged over and sat down, watching him in the dark as he walked around and picked up sticks and logs and brought them over to sit them down in front of you. So you were raised in the mountains? You asked, watching as he bent down to pick up a dry twig. Yeah, he said absent-mindedly, as he snapped it and then placed the 2 sticks side by side in his hands and then easily snapped them again. Mate, talk about fighting for my life there, just trying to get that chapter out. Sorry everyone, I hope that you can understand what I'm saying through my twisted vocal cords. I will see you next week for part 9. Hopefully my voice will be better by then. See you then.